Hi GSAs, my name is Lyisa and my pronouns are she, they. I'm a member of Hill Plus NM and we are working with New Mexico's Legal Aid Safe to Be You program. In Module 10, Know Your Rights, we covered your rights to form a GSA, how your First Amendment rights protect your LGBTQ plus expression, and what to do if your rights are violated. Now, we're back in a separate video for you in which we discuss your rights as it relates to your gender identity. Title IX. First off, what is Title IX? Pause the video here and ask your group, what do you think of when you hear Title IX? It's okay if you've never heard of Title IX before. Most adults don't know what it is. Title IX is bigger than what it seems. Let's get into some basic information. Title IX is a part of the Education Amendments of 1972. The Education Amendments of 1972 consisted of amendments to the Higher Education Act of 1965, which were enacted to strengthen the educational resources of our colleges and universities, and to provide financial resources for students in post-secondary and higher education. Title IX was the most notable part of those amendments. And guess what? No, you really have to guess, or do some math. If Title IX was introduced in 1972, and it's now 2022, then that's right, Title IX turns 50. So what are we celebrating? 50 years of progress in the fight against gender discrimination and more years to go. Title IX states that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefit of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So what does that one little sentence mean exactly? It means a lot more than what it seems, but hopefully it'll mean even more in the future. Breaking it into parts, let's begin with under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. This part may be the simplest. If you attend public school, they must comply with Title IX. Public universities are also subject to Title IX as well. Now let's get into the part we're all here for. On the basis of sex. So what does that mean in practice exactly? Well, it might be easier to look at the areas in education that are subject to protections under Title IX. Title IX's protections are most commonly associated with sexual violence and sexual assault on college campuses. But that's just one area. Some other areas under Title IX's protections include sports and extracurricular activities, sexual harassment and sexual violence, bullying, hazing, and cyberbullying, treatment of pregnant and parenting students, and retaliation against Title IX reporters. Although the language of Title IX and its commonly known categories does not always specify LGBTQ plus protections, the protections certainly apply to all students. Let's check out a stat to understand just how important bullying protections are for LGBTQ plus youth. According to the 2019 New Mexico Youth Risk and Resiliency Survey, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, genderqueer, and gender fluid students were bullied twice as often as their straight cisgender peers. The statistics show that it was 35.6% versus 14.4%. Bullying is the main area we see this. And no matter your identity, you have the right to be free from harassment and bullying. Sexual harassment and sexual violence protections are also an area of importance to LGBTQ plus youth. People target LGBTQ people with sexual violence, and we experience higher rates of intimate partner violence and sexual assault than the general population. 61% of bisexual women are survivors of sexual assault, harassment, and intimate partner violence in their lifetimes, compared to 35% of straight women. Any number over 0 is a number that is way too high. Not only do you deserve to feel safe, it's your right, and your school has an obligation to provide an environment that is safe for you. Aside from harassment, bullying, and sexual violence, there are a number of areas that are subject to fall under Title IX, but the guidance is unclear. These areas include bathrooms, transgender students in sports, locker rooms, and ID cards. These areas are still in development, but the treatment of these issues is heavily dependent on political influence. In a nutshell, the application of Title IX in a way that meets the needs of transgender and gender nonconforming students can fluctuate. Yet, this situation is not new. Let's think of the bigger picture. Title IX is about making sure that a group is not excluded or denied the benefit of an educational program. When in history has such access been denied to a certain group? We've been here before. Let's review some history. Court is now in session. Let's look at how the courts handled discriminations on the basis of race in the case of Brown versus the Board of Education, 1954. We know this landmark case is the end of the separate but equal doctrine in education, but we can also appreciate it to be the beginning of the fight towards full access within educational programs. The impact is greater when it has the sanction of the law, and in the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. From here, a number of lawsuits have arisen based on students being disenfranchised from the same opportunities their peers have had. Cases stem from students with disabilities to students with limited English proficiency, to students simply expressing themselves through their appearance. We can also consider Title IX in relation to hair and gender in the case of Arnold versus Barber Hills Independent School District 2021 and pending. This is a very recent case, and the determinations of it will impact male-identifying students who groom their hair in the style of locks. In this case, 2 black male students were disciplined for refusing to cut their hair for the purpose of complying with their school's hair length policy. And at least one of the parents of the students experienced backlash after speaking out on this issue. Not only have the parents of the students supported them in charging their school with violating Title IX due to discriminations on the basis of sex, but they also brought forth the claim that Title IX was again violated when the school engaged in retaliatory conduct. Next, we can also look at the way Title IX's protections apply to sports and gender in the case of Communities for Equity versus Michigan High School Athletic Association. In this case, female high school students claimed that their school was violating Title IX by not providing additional sports for high school girls, providing inferior practice and playing facilities for postseason tournaments held in certain girl sports, and requiring girls to play certain sports in seasons that were disadvantageous because they prevented them from participating in state competitions, which could have affected their college recruitment. Although the school sought review from the Supreme Court of the United States after the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals found them liable, it was to no avail. The school was found in violation of not only Title IX, but its Equal Protection Clause as well. Lastly, we look at the way the courts have handled issues relating to gender and harassment in the case of Doe in the United States versus Anoco Hennepin School District. In this case, students who did not conform to gender stereotypes were subjected to harassment by other students to the point of feeling unsafe. Specifically, the students, 5 current and 1 former, were harassed by fellow students due to the way that they dressed and acted. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, a gag policy preventing teachers from discussing issues relating to LGBTQ people further worked to the students' detriment. Students were told to lay low in the midst of slurs, threats, and any physical violence hurled at them. This led to both an investigation for Title IX compliance and a lawsuit. The lawsuit resulted in a decree that required a review of the school district's policies pertaining to harassment, the development and implementation of policies to prevent sex-based harassment in middle and high schools, the hiring of a Title IX coordinator, and continued monitoring of the school's efforts for compliance. From sports to hair to feeling safe at school, Title IX has and will continue to ensure that students' rights are protected and that all students have a fair and just opportunity to learn. At some point, the specific areas that have not been decided will come before the court for a final decision. These areas include bathrooms, transgender students in sports, locker rooms, and ID cards. Similar to the issues that have arisen before, the process to develop the proper guidance will take some time, but that's where you come in. You can play a role through your vote. Some judges are elected and other judges are appointed by elected officials, and how you vote impacts the judicial system where these cases are decided. In your future endeavors, maybe you'll use your lawyer hat for good. Maybe you'll be an actual lawyer. Maybe you'll be the judge we need. Your advocacy for your community and yourself matters. Now let's transition to hearing from New Mexico's Legal Aid Safe to Be You lawyer Michelle Garcia. She can tell you more about the resources and options you have if you witness or experience discrimination.
Hello, my name is Michelle Garcia. My pronouns are she, hers, and we met in the module affiliated to this one called Know Your Rights. In that video, I explained our work with Safe to Be You and began to explain how we can assist you if you believe that your rights have been violated, particularly in the area of civil rights. I'm here to remind you about how to do that in the context of Title IX violations. Please note that Title IX is a little different because you first begin by filing a formal complaint. So let's get into it. If you are being denied rights under Title IX, the first step is always to go to your school's administration. Number 1, exhaust administrative remedies by going to your school's administration. In legal terms, exhaustion of remedies means that you are required to first try to solve the issue within the school environment by going to your school administration. If this attempt is unsuccessful, then you can move forward down 2 possible paths, which I'll explain in just a moment. If you want support in going to your school's administration, New Mexico Legal Aid can help you with this. We can accompany you in a meeting with your school. We can give you advice on how to do so yourself or with a trusted adult or a parent. However, we understand that this may not be the best option for all students. What if you fear retaliation? What if there is simply not an adult that you can trust in this situation? If you do not feel comfortable going to your school's administration, please reach out to us at New Mexico Legal Aid Safe to Be You program or locate a trusted adult that you can go to about the issue. Once you have tried to resolve the issue with your school, there are then two possible options. You can choose to A, file a complaint with the Department of Justice, the Office of Civil Rights, and you are also entitled to protections under New Mexico's Civil Rights Act. You can also choose to initiate a private lawsuit, and the Department of Justice can still choose to get involved, but it's decided on a case-by-case basis. Do not hesitate to stand up for yourself in this process. Remember that just because we have laws that are meant to protect everyone does not mean that those laws are being enforced equally, that they are equally available, or that they are equally applied to everyone in all situations. Also remember, as a student, that when you advocate for yourself, you are also standing up for students in similar situations in your state or across the entire country who may be experiencing the same thing but may not be in a position to stand up for themselves or do so in a way that is safe. We understand that even with these options, there may be students who are afraid to come forward about the issues that they are experiencing. Even if you are afraid, that does not make your story any less valid. We see you and we understand you. We also believe that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. If you would like to contact New Mexico Legal Aid or the Safe to Be You program, you can Google us, find our website, and we're also available to talk by phone. Our phone number is 1-877-545-7270. New Mexico Legal Aid is currently litigating 2 cases on behalf of students in federal court for violations of Title IX. In one case, a student was taken off of a school bus on the way to a school event after being questioned about her sexual identity, questioned about who she was dating, and questioned about why the two of them were sitting together and what that meant in the context of the school event. She was forcibly outed in front of many of her classmates, experienced the embarrassment and also the loss of privacy around her own identity. In the second case, we are suing a university related to privacy protections that stem from a Title IX gender-based discrimination suit, where a student had asked for specific safety protections as a result of a domestic violence incident involving a former partner. When the school did not grant those accommodations, the situation escalated, someone got hurt. I'm telling you about these because I want you to have examples of what a Title IX violation can look like in the school context.
Now I'll give you the instructions to complete for the activity after this video. You can also find the instructions in the facilitator's guide below. Activity instructions. All of your rights go back to the Bill of Rights in the U.S. Constitution. However, the scope and the specifics of those rights has been clarified by the U.S. Supreme Court. People who have had their rights violated have sued their oppressors, and sometimes those cases have made it all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. When the Supreme Court makes a ruling about a case, it sets something called a precedent. And when a court's decision sets a precedent, it means that it becomes an example for how your rights and laws are interpreted by other courts in the future. Many questions relating to Title IX's protections are still being worked out by the courts and by governmental agencies, such as the Department of Justice or the Education Department. The following is a list of 9 court cases or executive orders that led to our modern interpretation of your rights under Title IX's protections. An executive order is a directive from the President to a governmental agency in the executive branch, which is pretty much anything on the federal level that isn't judicial or Congress. In the facilitator's guide, print off the list of descriptions of the cases for each group to have a set, and make sure that the cases are cut so each are on a separate piece of paper. Great! Now that each group has what they need to begin, in your small groups, read the list of descriptions of each case and put them in order in which you think they happened. Discuss! When the groups have their final lists, the facilitator will read the dates of each case, and the winning group gets a prize. The groups can discuss, did the activity leave you with any questions? Were there any court cases that surprised you? Were there any dates that surprised you? And would you feel confident in explaining Title IX to a friend? Thanks for watching, and you can find resources and links in the facilitator's guide